Okay. So, just 1 second. Okay, so when I'm sharing the screen for any reason, sometimes I cannot see the screen of Google. So if any of you want to interrupt me instead of raising your hand, don't hesitate and go ahead. Okay. And I need to stop the presentation. Okay. Hello, Stacy. Good afternoon. So I was saying that I'm going to record the meeting. I'm going to start. Yeah, I'm going to share the screen, so I may need to stop if someone else join or whatever. Sorry for that. I just not really got settled just to this Google Meets app. So, but it was easier than Zoom to access and everything. So that is why we have decided to shift into Google Meets. Okay, so hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and thank you for being here today. So the idea is, well, this is the antitrust compliance policy that you already know. So I believe that given the meeting is being recorded and you have already acknowledged, all of you, and this is in the MOUs, that we don't need to spend many time in showing this. It's in the presentation, so you are all aware. So the goal today is to cover the agenda that was not covered the last meeting. During what I'm going to do is to leave this view instead of so I can just have access to the web. So I would like to cover what couldn't be covered in the meeting, in the last meeting, the 13th of March, where we had some discussions that were generated after my colleague Renato and Alfonso from Kalamazoo presented. But that was a discussion. Not all the meetings are going to be as we expect, so it's good. It's a lessons learned, and if someone has any doubt of something, so you can just raise your hand and say. So let me check how can I move the. So now I'm not able to. Okay. So yes, I'm going to start by presenting the budget we have and the work plan implementation. So the budget that I've drafted is based on the activities that we are going to host, and the work plan that we have defined based on the strategy. This is the budget that I calculated for 2023. It does not mean that we are not going to include other activities, but for the work that we are doing and until probably Q3, this is what we are going to cover, and there are going to be some activities for approval. So after presenting the budget, I'm going to ask you again if we want to invest or to fund some activities from Capital and the scientific surveys. I'm going to talk a little bit about the reactivation of the Shantufib, where there are some stakeholders interested, and also about the Barcelona, just a quick overview. So this is the summary of the budget. So there is a full Excel file with all the activities and everything split by activities and by times. But this is just the summary, and I will share the full Excel file, or I can share with you already if you want, but it's a bit complicated. Basically, what I've calculated is I allocated for SR operations and administration, which is basically the secretariat and all the work related to the activities. Well, I can share. Why not? Let me share the Excel file, because it's going to be easier for you to understand how I calculated this. There is a lot of rows and columns, but I will basically go step by step. So basically, we had four pillars for our strategy. that were based on the one hand, strengthening the SQUID SR governance and expand participation, and I allocated all the activities related to the SQUID Secretariat and Administration, the regular coordinations, the meetings, the MOU signatures, well, everything, the invoicing, updating and reviewing the work plan, the budget, and expanding the SR when participating in events, in conference, and also all the work related to comms when we do press release or social media, what is included in each activity. And for that, I calculated this in days with the rally date of 2020. So the unit cost is that one, is calculated by SFP based on my salary, based on the resources from SFP, and based on everything. This is the daily rate calculated. So the total cost. So I calculated each activities by time. What is the time that I spend by month, or and the time at the end of the year that I have used is estimation. So it can be more probably, or sometimes it can be less, but I calculated this in number of months per year and the total numbers a year. I have included 5 extra days for January and February because it was when we were starting all the work and with the website, with the expanding, with the reviewing the MOU signatures, that takes more time than normal time. So I just allocated 1 day a month. We have some funding from SFP, which is covered by grants or SFP funding. And in certain cases, for example, like this, SFP is going to cover 30% of the total cost, and the rest of the cost is going to be covered by the SR. In other cases, for example, in the cases of these activities where we have more funding, we are allocating 50% from SFP and the rest for the SR. So basically, based on that, we have these total numbers that belongs to this summary that I mentioned before. So for the first activities, we have around $9,000 per year allocated for the SR. For the transparency and traceability component, where we are including now all these metrics work, the procurement policies, the science and advice, which is more related with features profiles that are of interest of the companies. These features profiles are going to be budgeted independently by the features team, and I have here all the numbers that I will explain you later. And then we have some reports and projects that we are going to develop that are going to be covered with SFP funding in the majority of the case, and I've only allocated a few days a year, 6 days a year in total for the coordination. For example, if we are hosting a webinar, or the webinar that I'm going to propose to host about due diligence and other webinars, or I have to coordinate consultants, external consultants, this is the days allocated for that. But given that we have some funding for these reports, as soon as we have the final amount from consultants that we are willing to hire, or from experts, external experts, I believe that we can cover this with the SFP funding. And if we need extra funding, I would propose to you in the next call what needs to be covered by the SR. But I believe that for this first year, we have enough funding to cover this report. So it's only the coordination that I've allocated the entire coordination to the SR, because SFP is going to pay for the rest. So for SR coordination and work plan implementation is $6,000, and then the profiles are going to be separately quoted. And then finally, for all this work that we call science-based management, which is more all this work of coordination we do, for example, with Kalamazoo, with CAPECAL, or the work we are willing to do with the North Pacific Fisheries Commission, the work that we may be doing in the South Atlantic. This is also some work that is covered by SFP funding, or the field work that we are always doing from SFP, but to coordinate a specific ask or actions, for example, the letter of support for the Chilean fisheries or any other activity, or to coordinate with the SR, I have allocated also half day per month to have a sort of support for all this work a year. So this is the this is the budget allocated for that for the year. Then if we have specific activities related to FIPS, for example, here, the survey for the Peruvian jumbo flying squid, the survey that Capecal has requested some support, we are going to allocate a specific funding for that, which is going to be covered by the SR with the initial contributions. I forgot to say that today we have $60,000 expected in terms of initial contributions, so everything is going to be covered. It's not going, any extra funding is going to be needed. You will see the numbers. So, for example, if in the current year there are other FIPS or other participants proposing other activities that match with the SFP strategy that can be used to fund certain projects, we can also study on these fixed contributions how the SR is going to support or not. So for now, the only ask we have is the 7,000 from Peru that we can decide to allocate or not. The total cost of the project is $50,000, which are going to be split by Capecal FIP stakeholders, industry in Peru. I believe that WBF is also covering part of this funding of this campaign. So the idea is that SFP and through the SR budget to collaborate with 7,000, and something that we can also communicate to the public through a press release or maybe during the Barcelona event, we can communicate that the SR is going to contribute with this money. For the last pillar of the strategy, with this address human rights risk, I have not allocated any budget yet because all this work that we are going to do, prospective work with consultants and experts, that is more to understand what is happening outside, can be covered by this. So if there is any specific activity that we define, so today at the work plan, we still are not in the process of beyond the webinars and the educational webinars and the prospection of the activities that we can do. There is no specific actions allocated to this pillar of the strategy. All is a little bit cut crossing in other activities, so I have no allocate any budget for now here, and we can discuss that, I believe, in quarter 3. No, I hope that after this meeting and with the webinars that are coming, we can just stop a bit. I know that it has been a lot of meetings, SR meetings, so I will try to keep more quiet the group and implement more activities and focus on the webinars and the educational work. So based on this, the budget for this year, and considering considering this is the SFP funding, and this is what the SFP is going to fund in terms of profiles, but I'm going to jump here in a second. Considering this, we should have around $25,000 for the budget of the SR this year. Is almost 17,000 for the SR work. We and with the 7,000 allocated for the survey in Peru, if you approve that, is going to be 25. So we still have almost 35,000 for work plan implementation, and for the next year, we don't need to put money the next year if we have enough funding to cover the SR costs. So I believe that we are good for that. Related to the fissures profiles, so here, as I mentioned before, and as we explore at the beginning of the strategy, we identify geographical fisheries. So we identify many fisheries that are of interest of the SR participants, and with that, I ask to our team to review what are the main fisheries that are today in fissures profiles developed, and we have these profiles in fissures. Some of them are planned to be updated in 2023 because these are priority profiles and priority fisheries where we have some funding, especially the Argentine short fin squid. Everything is going to be covered by SFP. And there are other profiles like the Cape Hope squid South Africa that are going to be only partially updated. So when we say full profile, we are talking about all the narrative, all the scores, all the indicators. When we see this, is because we are not going to develop all the narratives and all the profiles, but we are going to focus in the indicators, no, from 1 to 3. That means the management and the stock assessment and the health of stock. So this is what the SFP is going to cover. I know that the Cape Hope squid of South Africa is not a big priority. If it was a priority for the SR, we can cover the rest of the profiles to have the full profiles. But the reality is that today we wanted to focus in the ILEX, in the jumbo flying squid, that is also going to be covered by SFP, so no funding needed here from the SR. Some companies ask about the long fin squid. This is going to be covered by only the scores by some funding that we have. The Patagonian squid has been updated recently, so maybe we don't need to update this now, the full profile, but if the first part of the profile is going to be covered, the indicators at least. If we want to develop the full profile, we can go with the rest. And the New Zealand squid, that has been, there is no plan to update the New Zealand squid, even if it was a priority for the SR, because 2 reasons. The first one, we don't have any specific funding or donor that is covering the New Zealand squid. So this is the reason why it's not included within the SFP internal budgets. And secondly, because it was updated by SFP last year. Until there is, let me check. Until there is new information, and I request to Deepwater Group and I request to the Ministry of New Zealand to do an update and a review of the fisheries profiles. If there is any interest to update the 2 profiles, this is the cost for both profiles. And because I know that the arrow squid was a priority for some of you, from some of the SR participants, I highlighted this in yellow to include into the budget. We don't need to approve that now. We can just identify this to approve. And there is another profile that I know that was of interest in general, which is the Japanese flying squid. For the Japanese flying squid, we don't have plans to update this profile. I know that this was also of interest of many SR participants, but my plan here is to work with one of these pre-competitive groups in Japan that we are in conversations to ask them to cover as well part of this, part of the cost of these profiles, because the Japanese industry that is showing interest in the Squid SR model and could be the first interested in having these profiles up to date. So I'm going to try to find strategies to finance the profiles, the rest of the profiles that are not in the SFP internal budgets, and to do specific proposals to cover profiles that can be of interest of the SRs. The same for the Indian squid profiles. We have some plans now of approaching these fisheries, approaching the FIPS, in particular in Kerala, which for any reason is not here, but it should be. There is one profile for Kerala. For any reason, there is a mistake here, but there should be a line of Kerala. The Kerala has a fishery progress profile. So there is some information about Kerala, and we would need to update everything. So I will try to find some. I will just add here because there is a mistake when I copied from my colleague's information. Again, this has been updated in the past, and there are some profiles that were of interest of another pre-competitive group, the Hong Kong Sustainability Seafood Coalition. So we are looking into other collaborations groups that have shown interest into the Squid SR to also become contributors to specifically to the fishers. And there is one profile that is missing, and this is not a mistake, but this is something that my colleagues have forgotten to add, is the Mitre squid, which was also in the Mitre squid from China and Indonesian and Indian waters, which is also in the scope of the SR, and for any reason they have forgot to add the funding. But basically, for you to understand that the cost of these profiles is established based on the different flags, different fleets that are operating. Fishers profiles are developed with the information that is up to date and is a research work, a real exhaustive research work done by the SFP scientific team that takes a lot of time and is really time consuming in terms of contacting the authorities from different countries, collecting information, comparing this information, doing exhaustive reviews. So that is why the cost is different, for example, from the Patagonian squid to the Japanese flying squid, basically because in the Japanese flying squid fishery, there are many different actors, for example, different fleets, different flags, and different gears. So we have to develop different layers of information only for one species. If we talk about the Patagonian squid, we only have one species in one area with only a few flags and a few gears operating in these waters. This is the difference for the different costs. Jeff, you have raised your hand. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Carmen. I wasn't sure if you could see that, but I was going to wait until you finished. So I have a question about the longfin, Northwest Atlantic longfin line item, and I'm wondering why North Atlantic shortfin wouldn't be on there also. As you know, both are MSC certified. We just completed the audit, and the two assessments were combined. So I'm not really clear on the cost of. I mean, all the information is in the documents. We just got audited and everything else. So I don't understand why it costs $2,000 to update the profile for Northwest Atlantic longfin. And I also had the question about why shortfin isn't on there, because they're both certified.
Yeah, so the fisheries that are not certified, we can include, and for the cost, I can ask my colleagues from Fishers to do a more exhaustive disclose of each single cost, but the cost is based on the time employed for developing each profile. And if a fishery has many gears or many vessels or many different authorities managing the resources, it's more costly because the collection of information is complicated. Related to the MSC profiles, we can develop any profile upon request. I just highlighted here the profiles that are lack of information in the public domain and that are going to be used in a most systematic way with the recommendations that we have used. MSC has a lot of information available. So we believe that if MSC profiles are low-risk profiles, we may not need to invest many money in developing the profiles because we have already the guarantee that these profiles are MSC certified.
Yeah, that's my point, and I think it's also, I think ILEX ought to be on the list too, because
we can include that.
Right,
Jeff, there is no problem at all. The problem is that compiling the information represents the same effort. Even if the fishery is MSC certified, compiling the information is the same effort. So the cost of the profile is probably going to be less, maybe because the collection of information is easy, but without any doubt, we can include any profile you want upon request.
Yeah, I'd like to have ILEX on there, and there's a 400-page document, that profiles both fisheries, and so it's pretty simple. But yeah, thank you for considering that.
No, I can consider any profile that any company propose.
Well, if we're going to do longfin Northwest Atlantic, we ought to also do ILEX Northwest Atlantic.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, basically, this was an exercise to understand better how the fixtures work and what is the funding that SFP has available today to cover part of this work, which is in total $35,000 to keep this information up to date in a regular basis. So basically, with the first, so this is really the first approach for a budget that I've done. SFP would cover $43,000 without counting the work of the field teams. That is not considered here because this is something that we are going to do anyway. And related to the SR funding today is $25,000 considering the scientific surveys in Peru. Is there anyone here that consider or would not agree on financing the scientific surveys in Peru? For those that were not in the previous meeting, when Renato presented the goal of this work, basically, this is scientific surveys that are going to be conducted for compiling information for the Peruvian jumbo flying squid fishery in support of the action plan of the FIP and in support of the activities that CAPECAL is going to implement. It's not only CAPECAL, it's all the FIP stakeholders. So I prefer to ask if any of you has any opposition to use $7,000 to support this FIP. I prefer to ask this instead of voting for agreement, I would like to vote for this agreement.
Carmen.
Yes.
Here, Luis from Cabo Mar. Yeah, we, as we discussed in the last meeting, but we are not exactly aligned with this. So if it's possible just to wait until Barcelona to, in this case, Eduardo has to talk a little bit more with you guys and Pedro, if it's possible. So then we can decide.
Okay.
Is that possible?
I mean, it would be possible, but the idea was to have this votation done from the last meeting, having today a bit idea of voting yes or not with the information that I've sent, because we wanted to announce this during the Barcelona show. Additionally, if it's only one against voting for this, we want to achieve consensus. So if there is only Cabo Mar, I believe that we need to approve these kind of things. Yes, Stacy, go ahead.
Yeah, I would just be interested if you'd like to share what your reservations are about funding this.
Sorry,
Louis? I'm sorry, I believe it was you, but do you mind sharing what your reservations on funding this FIP would be?
Yes, I mean, I believe that I shared the project. I shared the draft of the project in the previous meeting notes and the previous.
Carmen. I think Stacy would like to know from Luis.
Okay.
What are their reservations? Am I right?
Yes, correct. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Stacy. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, thank you for clarifying. Yes, in our side, we would like to clarify as we try to understand well in the last meeting what's happening. I think it's everything almost clear from our side, but yes, the managing of the company would like to talk with Carmen directly on next week. It's just 1 week, so if this is possible, we would like to wait until that. So
yeah, Luis, I can provide any clarification, and this is not only for you, but for all of you. I can provide any clarification for anyone that wants to ask. I'm always open for that. The reality is that when we have to make decisions, and especially this one was presented a couple of weeks ago, when we need to make decisions, there is no, we delay a lot the voting, or we delay a lot the decisions like this one, we are going to be always behind of the schedule with the work plan implementation. What we want is trying to move forward with different activities. I believe that this does not represent a big part of the budget, and this is really a good opportunity for the SR as a kickoff of the SR, supporting an activity, an external activity of the SR, and it is going to provide visibility on the work plan of the SR. And this is not only an activity to support the FIP, but it's also an activity from the SR to align with the commitments that all of you have done related to the science-based management. The Peruvian jumbo flying squid has been a FIP that has been a priority for all the SR since the creation of the FIP and the SR. I believe that all of you have supported a lot all the activities, and it's not like asking for something for a fishery that is not a priority for the SR. So I believe that if all of you agree, if there is only one vote against that, I would go ahead with that if there is no other oppositions. And Luis, I can provide without any doubt any clarification to Eduardo in person or by phone when you want. But Eduardo could just have reached out to me before this meeting, because that was in the agenda, that was in the email, and I would like to not delay these kind of decisions in the future. And this is not only for you, but maybe for the rest of the group. I mean, I know that there is a lot going on, but we send the meeting notes. You were here as well. We talk, and I would have expected that you could make the decision.
Yeah, maybe for the next time, it's good to like you said, and maybe one deadline and something for voting, like some kind of nowadays it's not like this, no? So we can do something else. But okay, it's fine. This is our comment. If you want to vote us against, so it's up to you. But if we can wait, it could be better.
Is there any other opposition to this, or anyone else would need further clarifications on this? Is not clear enough?
Hello, Carmen. This is Teresa from Hilton. So we are still waiting to see our level of engagement. So we shared in the past that we're only sourcing very small volumes of squid through the New Zealand one. And obviously I can understand that there is a bit of lack of data, and that's why the fish source profile cannot, it doesn't really make sense to update it. But I was just going to say that I'll refrain to comment on this because Hilton's still pending a conversation with you about how can we support further the group just based on how little squid we source.
Okay, Teresa, yes. So related to that, I believe that Hilton has still not signed the MOU, but we talk about the possibility of contributing for the funding of the New Zealand profile.
Correct.
So yes, I will keep you up to date with that. So for this particular question of Peru, you couldn't vote or going against because there's no funding for that. But yes, for the New Zealand squid, there is no problem at all. I will keep you updated. I believe that this is something that we are going to integrate into the budget. If we have what I propose for the New Zealand squid, because this has been raised by many companies, that it was an interest, a profile of interest for many companies, and this is something that we have discussed many times, we can include the budget into and we can vote for that in the next meeting, but we can include the fisheries profile budget development when we know that the information is available, is up to date.
Yeah,
and so it's going to be worth to support development of profile. And then additionally, for companies that are not going to be, and this is something that I was actually explaining about other profiles like the Japanese flying squid, even the Patagonian squid or the Wellington flying squid or others, trying to find additional support out of the funding from the SR participants to contribute for the development of fisheries profiles. We are in touch with CPACT in US. We are in touch with Seafood Legacy in Japan, with the Hong Kong Seafood Sustainability Coalition, with the UK Seafood Sustainability Coalition. So we are willing to find also other sources of contributing the information that is going to be included in the fisheries profile. So for today, I'm not going to include further approvals into the budget, but trying to giving you an idea of the cost of the profiles and the scope of SFP in terms of updating profiles. And we can move forward with this in the coming months as soon as more information is being developed in different fisheries. Okay, so to finish with that, Luis, there is no problem at all in talking with you separately. But I believe that without any other oppositions, we are going to approve the capital funding, and we can move forward with the rest of the presentation. Stefano, as the chair of the SR, anything to say from your side?
No, I completely agree with you. I mean, we had hold on approving last time. That was already the deadline, and giving our friends of Cabomar a couple of weeks more to think about this and talk around, and it could have been contacted you in advance, I think. Anyway, it seems everybody else agrees, so I suppose this is something to move on. And I also agree on trying to include the New Zealand arrow squid into the fish source profiles funding if possible.
Okay, and yeah, okay, thank you, Stefano. Any other comments from any of you? Okay, let's go to the next slide. So basically, in terms of the work plan implementation related to metrics, we are moving really slowly, but well, this is something that I could expect it with all these meetings, all these events going on. Also from my side, I host the trainings that I could, but I know that there are other people waiting for training. So let's try to keep that as a goal, as a common goal for collecting this information and to have better information, and maybe to reactivate a bit the metrics sessions and trainings after Barcelona. In terms of procurement policies, the draft we did and we share with retailers and other companies, I've hosted these 3 webinars this week for the UK retailers sector, for Spanish retailers, and for French retailers this week. And we have many, and for other global retailers that are SFP partners and non-SFP partners. As I mentioned, we are working with pre-competitive groups like CPACT or now Consemar in Spain. We are also in conversations with the Japanese group that I mentioned, and all these coalitions that are interested in moving forward and see how to endorse these recommendations and how to support the work that we are doing. There are 5 retailers working in adopting these better procurement policies, following on the recommendations. We have been very clear in the fact of not boycotting any origin in particular, but being more diligent and requesting more information. So if you have customers or that are any of these retailers asking, is probably because of that. Actually, we are also promoting the participation in the SR because we believe that the good players should be recognized, and we need more good players in the group. So this is what has been happening in the last weeks in terms of the part of the work that we are doing. Regarding the webinars that we have talked about, some of you have asked after the Boston Seafood Show. So I've been working with Hugh Thomas, who was in Boston making some comments and proposing some support. I've been in touch with him to draft an agenda for a webinar that could happen 10th or 11th of May. The agenda is going to be around the due diligence. What is due diligence? Understand better what is the data collection framework for that. He's going to present the tool that was developed here in Europe, PAS 1550, but the webinar is not going to be limited to the tool. It's going to be just an example. And what I asked him is to also try to base the webinar more in the data collection framework that the tool is proposing, which can be used by any company following the EU regulation, but also the application to SIMP, even if the squid is not covered by SIMP, but how this can be used by different companies operating in different markets, and also how to map the supply chains in the three different components, no, environmental, compliance, labor, and safety. So the only thing is going to be a really exhaustive training. The training is open to any people in your companies, but please, this is something that we are working within the scope of the SR. So if you have customers, clients, or stakeholders that are not part of the SR but would like to participate, please let me know in advance. But the webinar is going to be limited for the SR participants and other groups upon request, these groups that I mentioned before, these pre-competitive groups, not the company's participation at the group, but representative of these groups. The only thing to decide, and this is something that I can propose a doodle for that, is that Hugh told me that this should be maybe 1.5 hours, 2 hours webinar. But if it's too long, we can also split in 2 webinars in 2 days, in 2 hours. The proposed dates are the 10th and 11th of May, the afternoon in Europe, morning in US, early afternoon in Europe, early morning in US. So I will send a doodle poll, so you can just organize your agendas, having a look and see. But this is basically, if you agree in going ahead with this webinar, any opposition, any comment, this is not mandatory. This is going to be recorded, and this is going to be shared with SR participants. And as said, any company, any participant, any staff of your company can participate. I will end the sharing the screen. Any comment on this? Interest? Any other topic to include in the agenda? Anything you believe that can be useful? Okay, so I will send the doodle poll today or tomorrow to decide as soon as possible on the date, and if we host 2 days or 1 day. In my personal opinion, I believe that it's better to invest 1 day, because he's going to cover everything, and everything is going to be linked, and we can stop for a Q&A session, and we can go step by step. But if you consider that you prefer in 2 days, we can also consider this option. So I will send the doodle poll for everything, and you decide. Okay. Next slide is the next steps for this series of webinars and this project of compiling all the information available. I'm in touch with other organizations, so probably RISE or colleagues from US may know quite well this tool. Also having the UK platform CFish, or colleagues from UK may know also this platform, what they are developing in the UK industry. And I'm in touch with other groups that are more focusing on the risk assessments and the transparency in the fleets. So I'm in touch with all of them to give them some, and I would propose more short webinars or short meetings, 30, 14 minutes, to present on the initiatives that they are carrying on and and see what can be of interest for the SR. The goal of all of these webinars and series of webinars is identifying first understand well what does it means, what is due diligence means, and what we expect when we say due diligence or when we say risk assessment. And secondly, trying to identify the tool or the tools, or if we can create a sort of tool for the SQUID SR, or what is a personalized one, if we want to go ahead with that, or having like a similar process that we conducted with Gilles in the past, having like a sort of webinars, sort of information, and a final advisory note that can help the group to move forward, choosing a scheme or not choosing a scheme or a tool, and just going with the same data collection framework and different tools. This is the goal, okay? So with that, we can move forward to other projects. I know that there are companies that are already engaged on that. I know that Hugh Thomas is going probably to propose one-to-one pilots to conduct that, but I would prefer to, as a group, identify what are the tools available. In terms of fisheries, the next steps, well, is draft a letter of support. We are with that. So if you remember, this presentation was 2 weeks ago, was prepared for 2 weeks ago. So we have already moved forward a little bit with that. I've already contacted the stakeholders in New Zealand, have not responded, but I'm going to try to meet them. If someone of them are in Barcelona, I'm going to try to schedule some meetings. And with Chile, I'm working with my colleagues in Chile to see what is the best request we can do for adopting this regional stock assessment. And now I want to focus a bit, because we have only 10 minutes, but with that I will finish what has been the conversations around the Shantu FIP. So if you remember, there was a Mitre squid FIP going on in Chinese waters, where some of you were engaged at the beginning of the launch of this FIP, and some of you were stakeholders of this FIP. Unfortunately, with the pandemic and the transition to a new coordinator and the lack of engagement from Chinese authorities and other problems, the FIP was suspended, was withdrawn, and became inactive last year. But apparently there is interest from the stakeholders in China and the coordinator to try to resume the activities and try to reactivate the FIP. What I proposed to the coordinator to provide some support from the SR, and I'm not talking about financial support, but more support in kind in terms of recognition and investing some of my time in helping with the work plan, was some considerations. For example, I believe that the work plan draft years ago, and with the results obtained from the last year's activities, were really weak, and the work plan were too ambitious. And I recommended to the coordinator to review the work plan and really focus on the main issues that are identified in this fishery. Basically, is the lack of stock assessment, and again, aligned with our pillar science-based management. And there is also a problem with the fleet, the traceability, and the transparency. So instead of reactivating the FIP with the same work plan, and there were also a problem related to the financial contributions to support the FIP work plan and the governance of the FIP. So what I proposed to the coordinator was first reviewing the original work plan, and we have included some activities. Well, I included some activities that are going to be reviewed by Fishery Progress that are related to traceability and transparency, to really focus on the problem of fleets that are not formal fleets, or that are not registered, or that are not in an authorized vessel list. And also to track the raw materials from the vessel to the final buyer. So these are two actions that I told to the coordinator that it would be a good start to support the FIP. I also suggested him to focus on the stock assessment and on the limited data fishery that they have, and trying to identify other models to have, or at least a procedure management, or a management procedure, sorry, or an estimation of the health of the stock. This is the two main activities that we have considered within SFP as a good condition to relaunch the FIP. And with that, the next step that we have recommended is to conduct a stakeholder mapping to understand which are the actors in China that would be interested in launching this FIP, from fleets to domestic markets and processors, and spending some time in engaging the local stakeholders. Because if we launch the FIP, if we support the launch of a FIP with the same weaknesses that made that the FIP became inactive, is a waste of time. So the last thing that I also suggested to them is to develop a formal budget to understand what are the needs of the FIP implementation. They can request some support to the SR once the FIP is progressing well. I didn't want to commit to any budget until they demonstrate that the FIP can go ahead with the work plan. And we are now in discussions with Fishery Progress to see if after all these activities are developed, there is an opportunity to reactivate the FIP in stage 3, probably, and with rating C, because of the last report they made. So they would start with probably a C rating or D rating and stage 3. This is something that we need to confirm with Fishery Progress. So the challenges today for the FIP are really the funding, the engagement of local and national authorities, and not only authorities, but also stakeholders, and the industry support. I believe that if the participants of the SR are willing to support this FIP, we could do that. And as I said before, not financially, but with some recognition and some support from the SR in terms of sharing information or including them, for example, developing a fisheries profile for a kickoff of the FIP. And then there are also opportunities. It's a key species for the global markets that obviously needs a better stock assessment, because we are not only talking about the squid harvested in Chinese water. This is a species that is distributed in the Indian Ocean and also in other coastal states of the Indian and the Pacific. There is also the opportunity of engaging some Chinese stakeholders from the supply chain, from science and from the government that were engaged in the past. We just need to also identify who are these stakeholders and how to start a dialogue with them, and start implementing a FIP that is based on traceability and transparency, and not only in the typical MSC principles that we know maybe today are really challenging, but maybe including this can help to processors in China and other stakeholders in China to engage better in this transparency, or at least in a specific region in China or specific companies and stakeholders. I finished with the Shantu FIP, and I would like to hear your reactions. Maybe you don't have reactions and you prefer to think a little bit of this, but if there is any comment or any...
Carmen.
Yes?
One question. This is David from Congalsa.
Hello, David.
One question. Who, I didn't hear you well. Who is interested in the reactivate the FIP in China?
So that was the coordinator and the old stakeholders in China, and there were also a couple of companies in US that are part of SR. If I'm not wrong, I believe Netuno, who has also committed, and Andre is in this call, so he wants to say something. And I know that Andre is in conversations with with the coordinators, or Andre, if you want to do a small update. And I don't want to talk on behalf of other companies, but if there is any other companies here that was part of the SR and wants to say something, was part of this FIP and want to say something, but I know another company, but they are not here today. I don't want to talk on behalf of them, but there is an opportunity. So, sorry, Jeff. First, Andre, if you want to say something about this FIP, because you have been in these conversations, or
Well,
not? Okay.
I went back in my files. So we contributed to a Chinese Loligo FIP in August of 2016. And I'm just wondering if this is the same species of fish or not. I haven't been able to get anybody to answer that question for me.
Yes, it's the same FIP, Jeff.
It is. So it has been kind of dormant for 7 years, apparently. Then
I believe that is the same FIP. If I'm not wrong, I should verify if it's the Loligo squid that was launched in 2013 from some US companies.
Okay.
Is the same FIP. I believe it's the same FIP, but
right.
I can guarantee 100%. But my knowledge is that it's the same FIP. At that time, I was still not in SFP, so I can't ensure. But I can just.
Okay, no, that's good. I think it probably is. So that's good to understand. Okay, we're totally on board.
Yeah, I think it's the same, Jeff. There was only one. So
okay, thank you, Steph.
We also supported, so we would be still interested to do it if this reactivate.
I remember that. Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
I just want to be really realistic on the fact that this FIP is really far from other FIPs to get any market recognition in terms of certifications because of the weaknesses of the fishery and also the lack of engagement from the Chinese actors. But I also believe that, as I mentioned in my slide, that is an opportunity. It's an opportunity to test what we are willing to do. It's an opportunity to request specifically some transparency and traceability. And I believe that if there is commitment from different stakeholders and they do the work that I recommended, or they continue in this way, in this path, but obviously they need to really develop and draft a strong work plan and a realistic work plan in terms of implementation and in terms of results and in terms of not a greenwashing FIP. And this is a lessons learned. I mean, when we started launching FIPs, even from SFP, from the industry, we have seen that sometimes we have drafted really ambitious work plans that finalize in inactive FIPs because the lack of leverage to implement the work plan and the lack of leverage from the stakeholders. And sorry, Andre, I asked you something and then you were on mute and then I didn't open you the mic. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I have problem with my camera now, but yeah, you made a very nice resume about everything that's going on there, and yeah, we definitely want to resume the FIP, and we are working in the work plan, and yeah, you did the picture. The picture is that as you said, and I think that the work plan was very ambitious and not achievable, and the NGO that was managing the FIPs at that time wasn't like keeping us updated about the steps, and we know that the government is very difficult to engage in China. So you put all this together, and then the FIP stayed like a little bit stuck on time. So yeah, I think but we have an opportunity to review the work plan and to re-engage the actors and maybe invite others and resume the FIP. That's the idea.
Okay, Andres. So as I know you are, and this is a homework for you and a task for you, I will task you to be a bit my contact person for these conversations. I'm in touch with Benji, with the coordinator, but maybe we can also schedule some separate calls to see how you are moving forward and to understand how you are working in a coordinated manner. And if there are others that are sourcing from Loligo Chinensis and are also interested in joining this effort, we can start building a dialogue and, of course, keeping updated all the SR. So yeah, Andre, just ping me on WhatsApp, Skype, or by email if you have. I'm in touch. I'm in touch with Fenji. But if there is something that you believe you need and I forgot, or we can keep working together, and then you will be the point person for the SR from the industry side. Okay.
No problem. You can count on this.
Thank you. With that, let's go to the end. We are at the top of the hour. Just mentioning that you may have received the Eventbrite invitation for the meeting that we are hosting in Barcelona. You can also request, as you did in Boston, the badge Proud to Work of SFP, and you have also the SR badge to use if you wanted your communications. We are going to have a booth as well. And please, if you are attending the show, just ping me. Some of you are in touch with me already. But yes, I'll be around. For the companies from US, if you are also attending, please just don't hesitate in pinging me. I'm not familiar with Barcelona, so I can't help with restaurants or others. If it was in Vigo, of course I could, but for any other question, I will be happy to help. And if there are not other queries or questions, I will finalize the call to not steal you more time. Any other comments? We can have one more minute. Okay. So we finished for today. I will share the recording as soon as my IT colleagues send me the YouTube link, and I'll keep available if you need anything.
You'll send us these slides then, Carmen?
Yes, of course.
Of course. Okay, thank you. All right, take
Thank
care.
you, Carmen.
Thank you. Have a good day.
See
Thank
in
you.
Barcelona.
Thanks, Carmen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
See you. Bye.